Hello, hello, hello. TM24 here, and we are back with some more Marvel Snap content. Now, if you're just now finding the channel, welcome. I hope you enjoy the content here. I hope you find it informative and entertaining as we're talking about a new deck. If you are a returning viewer, I really do appreciate your support. My llama here appreciates your support, especially you, Mike. But now let's talk about this deck. So, ever since Shuri got nerfed, I've kind of been looking for a home for her, and I think we may have found one here with this deck. I've just got it labeled SKS, and that's because I couldn't think of a really good name for it, but essentially, it's going to be Shuri, it's going to be Kitty, and it's going to be Sauron. Those are going to be three huge pieces to this deck, and one that I'm finding is actually pretty strong. It can definitely get you some wins, especially against the decks that we're playing against in the meta right now. So let's get into it. Let's talk about these cards, the choices, and how you want to play this deck, essentially. So first up, we've got 3 1-drops. We've got Kitty Pryde. She's going to be a huge source of power. I think she might be one of the strongest 1-drops in the game right now. She's definitely up there next to Nebula, next to Sunspot, maybe a tier below, but hey, I'd hesitate to put her up there, but I think she can earn a spot quite easily. Now, the other 2 1-drops we've got are Zero and Ebony Maw. And Zero is going to be great because we're building a deck that is kind of, I wouldn't say built around Sauron, but definitely takes advantage of his ability to negate those ongoing effects in your hand and in your deck. Zero, he kind of does something similar, right? He will negate an effect of the next card you're playing, so he is a natural fit in this deck. Our other 1-drop is going to be Ebony Maw. 1 for 7 is super, super strong, especially if he's hit by Sauron. Being able to drop him on turn 6 is great. Also, a really good target for Shuri if potentially you don't hit Kitty Pryde and aren't able to get her down early. Next up, we've got 2 drops. We've got Angela, Jeff, and Lizard. Now, these all are pretty standard. Angela is going to have tons of synergy with Kitty Pryde, and actually, she's just got synergy with pretty much anything. You want to play on her, start getting her buffed up. Jeff, I love Jeff. I think he's probably one of the best 2-drops. Being able to move around, play on any location, I think Jeff is great. And then we've got Lizard as well because he's got great synergy with Zero, great synergy with Sauron, and 2 for 5 is really, really strong. Next up, we've got 3 drops, and we've got 2 of them. First one we'll talk about is Sauron, and that's because we're trying to negate all these bad ongoing effects that are in our deck. Cards like Ebony Maw, Lizard, Typhoid Mary, and Red Skull are the ones that we are targeting. Now, our other 3-drop is going to be Rogue. Now, she's kind of a little bit of a different inclusion in this deck, but I do think she brings a lot of value. She can counter those Patriots, she can counter Null, she can counter some of those ongoing effect cards that that can really, really hurt this deck. So I think she is a nice fit in this deck. This is the one spot that I could see maybe switching her out for something. I didn't really get too much use out of her, but in theory, I think she works really, really well. And there were a couple of times where she could definitely take advantage. If you're hitting against a Galactus deck, she may end up winning you the game on her own. Now, our 4-drops, we've got 2 of them. We've got Shuri, who again is kind of who this deck is built around, along with Kitty and Sauron. And then we've got Typhoid Mary, 4 for 10. You know what we're trying to do with her. We're trying to hit Sauron so that we can play her without that effect. Zero can hit Typhoid Mary as well. And then we've got 2 5-drops. We've got Taskmaster and we've got Red Skull. So pretty standard in this deck. Taskmaster was found in pretty much every Shuri deck before Shuri was nerfed. And I still think is a really, really great inclusion in this deck because you can Shuri and play like a Kitty Pryde on turn 5. And then on turn 6, you can go Kitty Pryde and copy it with Taskmaster. And that could be, upwards of 18, 20 power that you can get down on 2 different locations. So you could get 18 and 18 thanks to Kitty Pryde and Taskmaster on 6. And then Red Skull, very, very standard in Sauron decks just because he's a lot of power. And if you can get rid of that effect, definitely going to come in clutch. So what are we looking to do here? This deck kind of has a few different play lines, and I think that's huge. I think that's great because having more options typically means you've got a better shot at winning these games because you're not relying on only 1 or 2 cards to get the job done. So let's talk about these other play lines, right? If you can get Kitty Pryde going early, that seems like a really good plan to go. Get her down as often as possible. A lot of the times I'm playing her on 1, I'm playing on her on 2 solo, and then you can start fitting other cards in. So you can fit in an Angela and a Kitty Pryde on 3. You can fit in a Sauron and a Kitty Pryde on 4. On 5, we already talked about it. You can go Shuri and Kitty Pryde, buffing up that Kitty Pryde for that turn 6 play. So that is definitely one route you can take. But if you don't hit Kitty, you're not out of luck, because you still have the Sauron 0 package in here as well. And you've also got the Shuri kind of double up Taskmaster line as well. So that other line is going to look like going 0 into Lizard, still super, super strong. And then if you can hit Sauron on 3, you can go Typhoid Mary on 4, Red Skull on 5, Taskmaster, and maybe Ebony Maw on 6, and you're still putting down a ton of power. So I love that line as well. And then you've still got Shuri to kind of buff things up. Maybe your hand doesn't turn out the way you like, but you can get Shuri down on 4, and then maybe you're playing Red Skull on 5 for 24 and copying it with Taskmaster on 6. So you've still got that option. Or you can Shuri your Typhoid Mary, and then still play, another 1-drop alongside it on 5, 6, you can kind of piece things together. So that's what I really, really like about this deck, is its flexibility, the different lines of play that you can take, and will definitely get you some wins. So I'll walk you through some of these games. As you can see here, we got up to turn 3, and we're kind of hitting it perfect. We can go Angela and Kitty Pryde. We've already played Kitty twice, and this is what you're looking to do. Looking at our opponent here, it looks like some sort of a Patriot style deck. They got Squirrel Girl down, they got Shocker down, Shocker without the high evolutionary. So what we're going to try and do is outpace them in 2 lanes, and what they're doing is trying to spread thin, and they're actually snapping. They feel like they've got a really good shot at this, but as we can see, turn 4, we're coming through, and we can go Sauron into Kitty Pryde into the same lane, buffing up our Angela. I think this is another huge benefit of Kitty Pryde, is you can kind of protect a lane like this, where in this Central Park lane, we've already got 3 cards down, but we can continue to play Kitty Pryde there to stop our opponent from, maybe filling that with a Goblin or something like that. In addition, what we're able to do here, because we got Sauron down, is drop a Lizard and drop an Ebony Maw, which are just absolutely huge. That's 7 power on that Ebony Maw, 5 power on Lizard, without having to worry about his negative effect. All we're trying to do now is figure out what's the best way to go about this. Ultimately, we decided to get Jeff down just because we want to be able to move Jeff if we need to, but we don't necessarily have to. And looking ahead, we're going to have a Kitty Pryde bouncing back to our hand at 10 power. They do play Debris, which, as you can see, we played into that middle lane in Central Park, protecting it. It wasn't filled by a rock. Instead, Kitty Pryde buffs up our Angela again, and we are in a really, really good spot here. We're up in 2 lanes. Yes, we are down in Necrosia, but look at the way our hand is turning out. We picked up Shuri for the last turn. We have an Ebony Maw. We can kind of go crazy here and just get a ton of power down. We're thinking maybe we go Kitty Pryde into Xander, Ebony Maw into Central Park. What we're expecting is a Patriot from them to kind of buff up what they've got going on here. So we can kind of make adjustments. Shuri can come down, hit our Kitty Pryde, and we can still play our Ebony Maw. So Shuri comes out, gonna hit our Kitty Pryde, who is now 20 power. Ebony Maw comes down into that Central Park lane, and they do play Patriot, but as you can see here, we were able to just get far more power than our opponent could, and we're gonna get a huge 8-cube dub there. Next game here. Our hand is a little bit rough right now. We didn't pick up any of our 1-drops, so a little bit scary. But looking ahead to turn 2, turn 3, we do have Angela, we do have Jeff, and we have Sauron for 3, meaning 4, we could easily go Typhoid Mary because she's already in our hand. We picked up Lizard as well, so that's going to be great for Sauron to come down and get rid of those negative ongoing effects in our hand, allowing us to again dump this power onto the board that hopefully our opponent just won't be able to keep up with. So 2, we go with Angela into a Goose lane, and honestly that is fine for us. It would have been fine even without Elysium, but we are getting Sauron down, and we decided to go Jeff. Now, same thing that Kitty Pryde can do for that Angela lane, kind of protect it, Jeff does as well, because he still has that ability to move. So by playing Jeff onto that Angela lane, it allows you to kind of protect it so that your opponent doesn't put something there that you don't want them to. They counter with a Brood. They've got a bunch of 2 powers out, so I'm a little bit worried that it's a Cerebro deck. So what we're going to try and do, again, we're going to focus on 2 lanes. You can see here we picked up Ebony Maw, which is huge. Cost 0. We have Lizard ready to go. We have Ebony Maw ready to go. And we've got Taskmaster in our hand. Now, maybe we should have ordered this a little bit differently. Maybe we should have played Lizard first and then Typhoid Mary to give us the option to copy Typhoid Mary with Taskmaster. So maybe a little bit of a mistake there, but ultimately not going to be too detrimental as of yet. Now we're just waiting for our opponent to make a play to see what we're going to do. We're not worried about filling Wakanda because we can still move Jeff and play on top of Angela. But that lane already is looking huge. So they counter with Sarah, so turn 5, they've got a lot going on for them. We do pick up Kitty Pryde here, which is nice because we can, again, start buffing up that Angela lane. And now it's time to decide, do we play Ebony Maw? Do we play Taskmaster? We ultimately decide, yeah, we're going to get Ebony Maw down into that sewer system because he's 7 power, going down to 6. But that's going to still be a ton of power for that lane. It's going to be tough for them to come back just because they're playing Sarah, so a lot of their cards are going to be, lower power, but maybe they're looking for like a Hit Monkey, Mysterio type play, something like that to combo up, and we know that we've just got to get as much power into the sewer system as we can right now. So we play Kitty Pryde, buffing up our Angela, we play Ebony Maw, and we play that correctly. We play them so that if we want to, on turn 6, we can copy our Ebony Maw with our Taskmaster, and that's still a decent amount of power that we're able to put out there. We're just waiting for them to make a decision, and we're sitting really pretty going into turn 6 here. It all just depends on what they do and how much power we're going to end up needing. Ultimately, they skipped, so really that gave us a ton of momentum going into this turn 6. Now we hit Rogue here. If we would have hit Rogue last turn, taking their Sarah would have been ideal. Unfortunately, we didn't. So what do? We're going to copy our Ebony Maw with our Taskmaster. We're going to get Rogue down because, hey, it's at least 1 more power coming into the sewer system. May not be much, but every bit of power counts. And then we're still going to play Kitty Pryde onto Wakanda just because we're going to buff up that Angela even more. So we're going to add 4 to Wakanda. We're adding 6, 7, 8 potentially to sewer system, not including, the power that it takes away. And we're just waiting for our opponent to make their turn. We've got a really nice setup here. Jeff is kind of off on his own, but he's in the deck for other reasons. Really, these cards that we're playing are our big cards, our huge power cards that are hopefully going to give us enough to get this win. So we're just hanging out. We're waiting for our opponent to make a move, and we feel good about where we're at. And that's what I like about this deck is we're able to completely empty our hand and get as much power out onto the board as possible. We've played every card. We've got all of these cards that have a ton of power with them. And now, because of Sauron, they don't have that negative effect. Kitty Pryde still able to do her thing and power up Angela. Taskmaster doing his thing, copying an Ebony Maw. So really, we're in a pretty good spot here. Taskmaster does copy Ebony Maw for 6. Rogue comes down, steals Sarah. Doesn't really matter because it's the last turn. Kitty Pryde comes down and we get up to 25, 16, and 3. They storm sewer system, which is actually pretty good for us. That's going to help buff up our Lizard, our Ebony Maw, and our Taskmaster. Now, they came through with a Juggernaut. We were not expecting that. Then a Polaris, which pulls our Kitty Pryde. Our Taskmaster and Rogue got sent over to Elysium, but honestly, that could not have worked out any better for us. They tried to counter with the Maximus into the Wakanda lane, but ultimately, we just have too much power out there, and we end up getting the job done again. Now, I think this is the last one I've got for you. And first up, we've got Zero. We've got the option to either play him or wait. In this situation, we're going to wait. We don't want to be forced into getting rid of a card's ability that we would rather have. So instead, we're going to go with Jeff, and we're going to put him down on the big house. We don't want to play him into deep space just because if we need to move him, we want that option. New York, Great for us. We can definitely move some cards around in there. Because we found Deep Space there, we have no fear in just tossing Lizard down, because his effect is, his card text is disabled in Deep Space. So he's just a 2/5, super efficient, and, a really strong play there. We zeroed out Typhoid Mary, so now we just got to decide where we're going to play her. Ultimately, we're just going to go into Deep Space. The text would have been disabled anyway, but still, it's nice to be able to get rid of those effects if Dark Space, wasn't there. We go into turn 5, and we have a bit of a weak play here. We're playing Sauron, but what's okay about that is that we see that we've got Ebony Maw in our hand, and that's going to be really key, because being able to play a 1/7 on turn 6 feels really good. We've got Rogue, so potentially we could hit that Darkhawk, but because they played Sarah there, it's only a 50-50. So, maybe it's a risk worth taking, but ultimately, not going to affect the game too much here. Now we're up in the big house, we're up in Deep Space. Lots of things can move. They can only move to New York, so we feel really good about where we're at with Deep Space. And we just want to get as much power into the big house and Deep Space as we can. That's where Angela and Ebony Maw come in. And then we just move Jeff. Jeff, we decide to send all the way over to New York. Maybe we can flip that lane if we can steal the Darkhawk. Rogue comes through, steals Sarah. So not super beneficial for the end of the game here, but they did only play one card into the big house, and we were able to put 9 power there. Shang-Chi comes out for them, and Rock Slide buffing that Darkhawk, but ultimately, we still have too much power, and we get another big dub. All right, so just a couple final words about this deck. We're kind of mixing a little bit of the old Shuri and, a Sauron style deck, but I think Kitty Pryde really helps this deck go. Hence why we've got it called SKS, Shuri, Kitty Pryde, Sauron. I think this is a deck that is, it's got some serious potential. I think, maybe the Rogue spot is a spot that we could experiment a little bit, maybe take Rogue out for something else. Other than that, I really like the cards that are included in this. I think there's tons of synergy. It always feels like you have a pretty solid play to make. So this is one, I think, if you're looking for something a little bit off meta, this might be one worth giving a shot, one that your opponent really isn't expecting. And, kind of the cool thing about this deck is you could win with only 3 cards. If you can get Kitty Pryde going early, you pick up Shuri, you pick up Taskmaster, you can kind of just go Kitty Pryde over and over, power it up with Shuri, and then on turn 6, Kitty Pryde Taskmaster to win you the game. And that is a super satisfying play to make. But definitely one worth trying if you've got these cards. I do think it's super competitive right now, so I don't think you'll have too much trouble winning these games. But you got to give it a shot. You definitely have to play a few games to kind of get into the feel of it, the rhythm. But if you got Kitty Pryde, get her going. If you don't, go and zero into, Lizard, into Sauron. That's a really nice package. Maybe you just wait until 4 with Shuri, and then you go Red Skull, Taskmaster, Kitty Pryde, something like that on 6. So definitely a fun deck. Tons of ways to win, and definitely one worth giving a shot. Now, if you've hung around till now, I really do appreciate you. I hope you give this deck a shot. And if you haven't subscribed or liked the video, now would be a good time to do so. But until next time, have some fun.